Right.
And I'm just going to check, but we should be live.
It says live on mine.
Yeah. We should be live. We must be live.
All right. Okay, I will do a quick introduction, very, very quick, because I would just like to say sorry to everybody out there. We had some major technical difficulties, but Hannah and Sam and Mary and Kayleigh, we were gracious enough to kind of stick with us. And Hannah came up with this beautiful idea of going on, I think it's StreamYard. So yay, Hannah, thank you for saving me. I'm not going to go over my usual spiel because I think everybody just wants to get to the main event. But if you are interested in purchasing a book, please just go to the bookshelf. They are our bookseller. All three authors have been gracious enough to send over some signed book plates. So if you want a signed copy, go to their website for more information and just go and order any of their books. I'm going to pass the virtual mic on to Kayleigh and enjoy.
Thank you, Veronica. Welcome, ladies. I'm really excited to get to sit and chat and hear from all of you. I'm going to start with just a brief bio introduction of each of our authors that we have, Sam, Hannah, and Mary. And then we're just going to get down to conversation. We are going to welcome questions from our audience. So if you have a question, you can pop it into the comments. And as we get through our chats, we will ask and answer some of those questions as well. So I'm going to start in just the order that's on my screen. So I'm going to start with Samantha. She is the #1 best-selling author of Women on the Edge. She's a Toronto-based novelist, journalist, and freelance editor. Her work has appeared in Now Magazine, The Village Post, and Oxford University Press, among other publications. She was a writer-in-residence for Kobo Writing Life at Book Expo America in 2013. And she is the co-founder of BookBuzz, a promotional and interactive author-reader event held in New York City and Toronto. Woman on the Edge is her debut novel. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you.
Next up, I have Hannah Mary, who was born in the UK, grew up in Switzerland, and moved to Canada in 2010. After a successful career in recruitment, she quit the corporate world in favor of writing, which I think secretly every person wishes they actually did. She now lives in Oakville, Ontario with her husband and 3 sons, and is delighted by her 20-second commute. And if you really enjoy what you're hearing tonight, Hannah Mary, you are doing a conversation with Camila Lockberg, I believe on Wednesday, June 24th. I'm going to let you say a little bit more about that when we get into conversation, but that sounds like that's going to be a fabulous conversation.
Providing Zoom works.
I feel like we have a backup now for any Zoom issues. And finally, last but not least, I have Mary, who is the New York Times and international best-selling author of several psychological thrillers, including The Good Girl, which has now sold over 1 million copies, which is just incredible. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and in history and American literature. She lives outside of Chicago with her husband and 2 children and enjoys photography, gardening, and caring for animals at the local shelter. So welcome all 3 of you. Your bios make you sound like 3 of the most lovely women. And you do really, really terrible things to your characters in your books. And that endears me to you even more. So welcome. That kind of is what I want to do. You all 3 have books out. There's many books out between the 3 of you. But your recent books, so for Hannah, that's Sister Dear, in case anyone hasn't seen this one. For Mary, it's The Other Misses. And then Women on the Edge, I have to pull it up on my iPad because my copy went walking and has never returned. So I now own it virtually as well. These are the latest books by these ladies. And I'm going to start with just the theme because I think it's a good transition from your bios. All 3 of you talk about good people who trusted the wrong people. which is a kind of a quote from Sam's book. And I would just love to start talking about that with all three of you. What does that mean, and how do you find these wonderful people who make such terrible life choices?
Sorry,
We can hear you, Mary, so we're going to let you go. That's wonderful.
You can actually hear me for once. I think that when I start writing my novels, I always like to take just like everyday ordinary people and put them in these really extraordinary situations, which is why I do end up having these really lovely people trusting really awful people and getting themselves in just a world of trouble. So I think, a lot of times the characters that I begin with are very much like myself or people that I know. And, then I just I like to really mess with my characters, and I sort of put them in like the worst situation imaginable. And a lot of times, I'll put myself in their shoes and try and think through like, oh my gosh, what would I do if I was in this situation, and kind of take it from there. But I feel like, thankfully, in our everyday lives, we don't encounter a lot of the situations that our characters might be going through, but these people are not so far, they're not that different than we are, which I think is what fascinates a lot of people with this genre. Like, these characters are pretty relatable.
Yeah, exactly. I like to make them, they could be your, the neighbors, a case in point, one of my books, they could be your neighbors, they could be maybe a family member, somebody a friend, and it's very much the same. It's ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances and under a lot of pressure, and then I mess with them.
And I think like Hannah and Mary said, I love to mess with my characters. I think any of our characters could be any of us, women, mothers, neighbors, friends. And you really don't know who you can trust completely. And as I think people also have different levels of goodness, and some people do have levels of evil to them. So putting all of that together and pushing everyone to their limits is something I find really fascinating.
And I found it fascinating, some of your characters who just own, to reference Sam, own their evil. Because I feel like we often don't openly look for women owning their evil. But Hannah, especially, some of your characters really, really fully embrace and acknowledge what they're doing.
Yes.
Can you talk about building those kind of characters? Because in a weird way, they're very empowering.
Yes. It was very important to me in Sister Dear to have, and I'm not going to reveal any spoilers for those who haven't read it, but it was very important that I had a character or characters who knew exactly what they were doing. I wanted to see a different kind of heroine or antagonist or protagonist, depending on who the character is. But I remember somebody saying to me, I'd like to see a character a female character who knows exactly what she's doing, who's calculating, who's manipulative, and revels in it. And that seemed different to me. It's not a woman who's unhinged, who's got an alcohol problem or whatever. No, this is somebody who she knows exactly what she's doing, and it's very tactical and it's very deliberate. And that was really interesting to write, because I hope I'm not like that. I don't think I'm evil anyway. Deliberate and tactical, sure. At that point, and it was there was one instance I remember writing Sister Dear, and there was a tweet from someone who said, when is someone going to write a book where evil wins? And I remember laughing, actually cackling, and responding, I'm on it. 2020 type thing. And it was almost empowering in a really weird way, which there's an awful lot about me I don't want to know.
I picked up and embraced that as well. So we'll keep that between ourselves and anyone who's watching. I'm going to go down that lane a little bit more, because Mary, both you and Sam also had these kind of strong female characters who, while we got to know them and we learned the different sides of them, They did all have these sharp edges. And I really enjoyed how you created your characters, because there's a trustworthiness to all three of your main characters, actually, that I feel like suspense kind of fell away from for a little while. And I just wanted to talk about your transition back to that.
Yeah. I think for me, my characters are so important. And I think, I don't know, when I read a book, I really want to feel connected to the character. And it doesn't mean that I have to agree with the choices that they make. As we've said, in this genre, characters can make some really awful choices. But I want to be invested in their life and, just to have that sort of emotional connection to them, because I think that that's what pulls a reader through the book. A reader really, really wants to know what happens to this character at the ends of the book. And so that's why I really try to make my characters relatable and to have that softness to them and that side that will just really hopefully draw the reader in.
I agree completely with Mary, because I think that's the beauty of domestic suspense. This genre that came really from Gillian Flynn,
yeah,
where it's almost a mix of women's fiction, drama, and a suspense thriller, whichever, I think if you asked any of us what genre we write in, we'd have a hard time really pinpointing what genre we write in. Because I think it has the action, the danger, the intrigue, the clues and the suspense, but underlying all of that, and in Hannah's book too, I think is that emotion, that connection, these very layered, flawed, complex female characters at the center of our stories.
Absolutely.
And one thing that all of your characters struggle with, the main female characters, and again, I will reinforce that we will have a spoiler-free talk. Anything that I bring up is something that you will find normally on the back of the books, or within the first page or so. So just to say that. But all of your main characters, what I really appreciated was that they all struggled in their own way to try and be perfect and hide any of their cracks. And I want each of you to talk a little bit about that experience, because I found that for each of the main characters, that was their downfall. If they had shown their cracks, the endings would have been potentially different.
Yeah.
For me, one of my characters is dealing with postpartum depression and anxiety. And so from that point of view, I think when you're a new mother and your baby is in your arms, and of course it's so joyous and it's exhilarating, it's also exhausting and stressful and shocking. And if you're suffering from postpartum depression, which I did not. I absolutely had levels of anxiety, but I watched firsthand my female friends, mothers who high achievers, type A personalities, very accomplished women who fell apart, but were so terrified for anyone to see how much they were falling apart because they were afraid to look weak. They were afraid to be judged. They felt so much shame over all of it. And it's interesting how I think it relates a little bit to what's going on now for mothers who are home with their kids and we're trying to work and we're all feeling really, really stressed. But it's still hard to say. It's really hard having our children home with us all the time. We're mothers. Shouldn't we want them with us all the time? So I think that was a lot of what I wanted to explore.
Yeah. I think, Kayleigh, what you described a couple of minutes ago, I feel like, I can't speak for all women, but I feel like for many women, that's kind of, you put on this front of kind of, you've got everything together, when inside, there's just so much anxiety and emotion going on, whether things aren't great with your marriage or, you're having trouble taking care of the kids or a parent, or you have, an issue with the friends, but then the side of ourselves that we show on Facebook and social media, are all the happy pictures. And, so maybe sometimes we don't really address many of the things that are going on, those internal struggles that we're going through all the time. And so I think that I know with my protagonist, Sadie, that's kind of one of those things, there's a lot going on with Sadie, but but she too, she's a mother. She's got 2 boys. She works as a doctor, so she's got an incredibly stressful job. Her family's just relocated. So I feel like those, hit the list of like the top stressors in our lives. And, yet she's trying to keep it all together and like be the perfect wife and the perfect doctor and the perfect mother. And there's a time that it's not gonna work.
My character doesn't have, so Eleanor in Sister Dear doesn't have kids, but she is riddled with self-confidence issues that stem mainly from her mum and from her sister. So physically, she has a form of body dysmorphia, I guess, where she sees herself as really unattractive, bordering on ugly. She's smart and she knows she's good at her job, but it's the image, the self-confidence, the lack of self-confidence, and what her mother and younger sister have basically indoctrinated her with, that she's useless, worthless, ugly, stupid, fat, all those horrible things. And she hears her mother's voice in her head constantly. And that was interesting to write. I love my mum; she's great, and my sister, she's great too. So this is in no way, shape, or form based on my own experience, but it was interesting and hard. And there were a couple of times where I'm writing this, and actually when I listened to the audiobook, there's one scene in particular and I'm not a teary person, but it actually made me well up. And I knew what was coming. I wrote the thing. And it still got me because they were so mean. They were so horrible. And they had such an impact on her, which was so unfair.
All 3 of you have these incredibly wonderful main characters who are so impacted by their family, whether it's a partner, right? These people that you trust the closest, that you let in the closest in your life, from Eleanor to Sadie, to both of your main characters, Sam, they really are let down by the people who are supposed to be their number ones. I'm going to link this question into some of the questions that we're getting, because we've got a ton of live comment questions, which is exciting. But one of the questions is, do you ever stop and think that you've gone too far with pushing a character? And I'm thinking that with some of the partner relationships. Where you really no.
No. I think honestly, because the worst thing I witnessed within a family was the murder of a son by the father. So, I mean, there's little worse than that. I haven't, I don't mean in a book. I mean in real life. So and again, they're not real. These people that we're writing, these people that they're not real. No real people were harmed in the making of this book. Up until now, I think my writing has got darker with each book, and I'm not yet done. So I have not. Moving to the dark side. So I haven't yet found anything that I. Well, no, there are things I won't write about, absolutely, but none that I've written yet, and I've gone, ooh, no, I think I need to pare that back a bit. My editor hasn't asked me to yet either. So until I get a slap on the wrist, I think I'll just keep going, I suppose.
Yeah. I think because it is fiction, what we're writing, and of course, anybody that watches the news knows the horrors that goes on. But I think because it is fiction, there's sort of that disconnect a little bit. I don't feel, my editor has suggested that I pull back on a couple occasions. But I personally have not. I've never written something that, really made me squeamish or that I felt like I was crossing a line. But I don't know. I like dark stuff. I like reading it and I like writing it.
I'm the same. So I love reading it and I love writing it. I haven't been asked to pull back, and I haven't felt like I've maybe crossed a line or I've gone too dark. But there are certain things that I'm not sure that I would write about. I see myself going darker and darker, but there are certain things that I'm afraid of as self-fulfilling prophecies.
Oh.
That I'm afraid, yes. Yeah. I'm afraid certain things that if I write about them, that it'll happen to me or someone I love. Yes. Oh. So I am careful what I choose. And I am not, I don't really like gore very much. I like violence. Sorry, I like violence.
You might want to rephrase that.
Psychological violence.
Right.
I love the psychological aspect of it. But I could see myself go a little bloodier as I write.
Welcome to the dark side, right?
Yes.
I have a couple process questions, and that kind of leads me into that. One is, how did you, as writers, get into this genre? Was it just what your voices always told you to write, or have you kind of come into it further throughout your writing?
I blame Jennifer Hillier. My first book was a rom-com. And I had an idea and I went with it and I wrote the book and that was my first one. But as I was writing the second one, so Sister Dear was my fourth. So as I was writing the second one, I realized that it was darker and grittier. And I was at the library and I saw this book on the shelf with the white, I have it behind me actually, white cover, red letters, creep, and a pair of handcuffs. And I thought, that looks interesting. And I read, they're kind of dangling, very sinister. And I read the back cover. I'd never heard of Jennifer Hillier before. It was her debut. And I took it home and loved it. And I thought this was the shove I needed to go to the dark side. This is exactly what I needed. It almost gave me permission and reminded me that I used to love reading thrillers, which I didn't do for about 20 years. So it was really reading her book and realizing, I don't want to write a rom-com. I don't want to write something where everything works out and boy gets girl or girl gets boy or whichever combination, at the end. I wanted something different. So I blame Jennifer. Or actually, I'm very thankful to Jennifer. And we're friends. We live in the same town. So we were friends. So
Did she know that you inspired her?
Say that again.
Does she know that you inspired her?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, she does. Yeah. I ran into her at Bouchercon where we met, and she was chatting with her agent, I think. And I said, "Oh, you're Jennifer Hillier," and I had a complete fangirl moment. It was really embarrassing, but she forgave me, I think.
She's a wonderful writer.
She is.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think for me, before my first published book, The Good Girl, I wrote more like women's fiction, I would say, but I never finished anything. I get what I thought was a great idea and I'd start writing it and get like 50 pages in and then just totally lose interest and set it aside and, think of the next great idea. And I'd keep going through the same process over and over again. And I could never figure out like, what am I missing? Why do I keep losing interest so many pages in? And when I started The Good Girl, it was meant to be like anything that I had started, in the many years before that. I thought it was more like a love story. I had no idea the twists and turns the book was going to take. And I'm not a plotter, So when I started writing, I just dove into it, created my characters and went with it. And then, just one random day, I thought of some sort of twist and I added it in. And then, another twist and I added it in. And slowly, what was meant to be pretty straightforward women's fiction became this psychological suspense novel. And so I usually say that the genre found me rather than the other way around, because The Good Girl was the first manuscript I ever finished. And, once I started, putting in those twists and laying that breadcrumb trail, I was totally hooked.
And I think I follow a little bit of that. So I've been writing since I was 10 years old. And I started out writing dark stuff, and then I moved to rom-com, and I started writing rom-com, and then I started moving into darker women's fiction. As I got older and as my mind got darker, or at least I'd let it go back to the dark side because I had been a pretty dark kid. And what Woman on the Edge was actually originally a dark women's fiction, and it was my agent who said, I think this needs to be a thriller. And it was like she saw into my soul, because I had wanted to write a thriller my whole life, but I was scared. I was scared because It seems such a different process than writing rom-com and women's fiction. And she said, I'll be with you every step of the way. And she was. And then, and a thriller writer was born from that, because I found a compulsion and an obsession, to be perfectly honest. So, I love writing. Like I said, the psychological darkness inside people.
Now I have to pick up on something that Mary said, because I'm always intrigued by this. Mary said she was not a plotter with writing when you started the story.
I'm so jealous, Mary. I'm so jealous.
Oh no, anxiety.
Tell me, all three of you, I'm interested. Do you know how your stories are going to end? Do you plan out your scenes? I bullet point my emails, so I'm amazed when people say they can just write.
I'm a lot, so like you, Kayleigh, I think, where I bullet point my emails. Yeah, I'm a plotter. The book I'm working on now, it's got a 20-page outline, beginning, middle, end. I know, but I wasn't. I was a pantser, whatever you call it. Before I was, but then as I started writing thrillers, for me, I needed to know what was happening, because I needed to know when to reveal certain clues, and I needed to know where to put the beats, and I needed to know how one scene, led to the next scene. Mm-hmm. But saying that, the book evolves. It definitely evolves. I think I use it more as a map, and then I change direction, because sometimes my characters will say, I don't want to do that. I'll say, but you have to do that. And there's I'm not doing that. So there is a lot of evolution and change. But I know that Mary's not a plotter, and I just want her to come and teach me what she does, because the plotting is intense.
Oh, I have to say, though, there are a lot of times, there's a lot of anxiety that goes with being a pantser, because I'll get 200 pages into my book and be like, I have no idea where I'm going with this, and so there are days that I can really panic. Like, what if all these pieces don't come together in the end, or I'll write myself into a hole and know that, whatever I'm writing, I've got nowhere to go with it. And so I've got to delete and, try a different route. But there's adrenaline that goes with it too, I would say, just kind of getting up and not having any idea what's going to transpire that day, what crazy things my characters are going to do. And I learned a lot about my characters through that process. And sometimes I do know the ending. I with The Other Misses, I knew part of the ending, but not all of it. There was more that I kind of figured out during the process of writing it. But yeah, it's always a messy process, but it's one that I love.
Is it true, Mary, that you, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it true that when you have multiple POV, point of view characters, that you write one and then you write the next and then you write the third and then you shuffle?
That's very true. So The Other Misses has three narrators, Sadie, Camille, and Mouse. And so I wrote all of Sadie's storyline from beginning to end and then set it aside. And then I wrote all of Camille and all of Mouse. And I go and I print it out, and I have 3 stacks of paper, and I just start to shuffle the chapters together. And I have to move some stuff around because there's a reveal at the wrong point in time. But it sounds so crazy. But when I'm writing just Sadie's storyline, it's great because I'm only focused on Sadie's voice and what's happening in Sadie's life. I'm not jumping back and forth between chapters.
And it works for you.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I did try that.
I'm reading The Other Misses right now. Sorry, I'm reading The Other Misses. So it's working. It's such a fantastic book. And Mouse. Anyway, sorry, Hannah, go ahead.
How do
I used that technique, Mary, for book 5 for the next one, but having plotted. Okay. So I have 3 point of view characters and I plotted them out. And then I thought, instead of doing chapter 1 is X and chapter 2 is Y and blah, 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 I wrote all of the first one and it didn't work.
Oh, no.
Well, it's a tricky manuscript. So I for the next one, so not next year's book, but the one after, I'm very much like Sam. I plotted, which I do anyway. I plot a lot. I interview my characters. I have photographs of them. I have no idea who these people are, but they're my characters. They're not celebrities, because I find that distracting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I plot. I like to have, like Sam, I like to have a map of where I'm going, and that gives me the security, the illusion that I know where I'm going, because things change. So funnily though, for Sister Dia, I knew even before I started plotting, I knew exactly where Eleanor was at the beginning of the story, and I knew exactly where she was at the end, and that didn't change. And that don't think that's actually happened before. In all the other books, the ending changed either slightly or significantly.
And the ending of that.
So good. Oh my goodness, so good.
I feel like I need another book after that one. Like, I don't know what happens in 18 years.
Yes.
There. You're not going to give anything away with that one, are you?
Nope.
It's so hard. I'm like just
not saying nothing.
No.
I'm going to keep, I know we've been talking for a while. I have a few more questions, and I am going to go to more of the Q&A as well, because like I said, we've still got more coming in. I'm really happy that people are still in and watching us and are excited that we're having this conversation. Two big areas. One part that I wanted to talk about, because I don't think many of us see behind this curtain, but is the tight-knit of the writing community. All three of you know each other from beforehand. You've blurbed books for each other. You show up in acknowledgements. Can you talk a little bit about kind of that other side of being an author in the community that we don't always see?
Oh, well, I'll take that one with pleasure. So when I wrote my first one, Time After Time, I didn't ask for blurbs. It was a very different situation, because it was an ebook. The strategy was ebook first, turned into ebook only with HarperCollins Avon in the UK. So when then Miro or Harper North America acquired The Neighbours and Her Secret Son, I then had to go out and get blurbs, or ask for blurbs, or work with my editor to get blurbs. But the general consensus is it's better if you ask them, if you try and have a personal connection. And I loved Mary's books, and you were one of the first people I sent a little note to on the email or Facebook or whatever it was, and said, would you please blurb my book? And then went to hide. And I mean, I've networked before and whatnot in my former life in IT recruitment, so I was no stranger to that, but not in this environment. And these authors, big names and all the rest of it. And Mary wrote back and said, "Sure, of course I will." And I almost fell over, and then I ran around screaming for half an hour probably. And the same with Kimberly Bell. And before The Neighbours came out, that was 2018. In October 2017, I went to BoucherCon. So that's the murder mystery readers writers convention that's held every year in North America. And as it happened that year in 2017, it was in Toronto. So I went. I didn't know anyone. I knew Mary, we'd connected online, and I knew Kimberly Bell, we'd connected online, but that was it. And I have never seen a community like the writing one. I got to BoucherCon knowing no one, and I left knowing a gazillion people. And here's the weird thing. So there are a bunch of us, female thriller, crime, murder, mystery, whatever genre authors. And I made friends with a lot of them, connected on social media, and said, I have The Neighbours coming out. Would you like a copy? Didn't ask for a blurb. I think we sent out 12, and no word of a lie, every single one read it and sent me a blurb without me having to ask. And that's extraordinary. I've never seen, I worked in recruitment, it's pretty cutthroat. I've never seen anything like that before. The support, the camaraderie, it just, to me, it doesn't feel competitive at all. And whatever we can do to support one another, that's what we'll do. And it's extraordinary. That's the only, as an author, that's terrible. That's the only word I can think of. But that's the one that just, for me, sums it up. Extraordinary.
I can absolutely agree. with Hannah. I think the writing community it is extraordinary. When I started in rom-com, and I was self-published, and so I was part of a different world, but and an incredible world of authors and bloggers back then, you know. And in the thriller world, I was a fan, like a huge, you know, gushing fangirl over all these authors. I remember meeting Mary at BEA, maybe 2013 or 2014. And then I went to see Mary when she was in Toronto and, you know, doing a signing and an event. And Hannah, I was such a huge fan of, although we seemed to get friendly at the same time when The Neighbors was coming out. And I am blown away by the support of, like, it makes me really emotional, because I think these authors are so kind, so generous. I was very scared to ask for blurbs for my debut. I felt, you know, like, you don't know me really. All you know is I love your books. And it was a really fast, my book was chosen by Indigo as the December fiction pick of the month. And my publication date was moved 5 months sooner. And so it was a kind of a bit of a scramble to ask for blurbs. And I remember asking Mary, and Mary will never say, I'm so busy, but I'll try to do it. Mary just says, sure. What Mary didn't tell me is she's on like a family vacation. That's much needed. And I realized suddenly I see these pictures of Mary, I think in Italy. And Mary, and I think in days, was like, I'm blurbing your book. I'm on the plane. I was like, oh God, Mary, I'm so sorry. She was like, no, it's awesome. I'm so happy to do it. And that is the entire community. Hannah too, and Kimberly Bell, Heather Gudenkoff, Samantha Downing, Christina McDonald, Jennifer, Hillier, Amber Cowie, like just this huge group of amazing people who truly support each other, celebrate each other's successes, are really genuinely there for each other. And it's wonderful.
I completely agree with all of that. You know, coming into this, you know, before The Good Girl was published, you know, and I had never been in social media before. And so I, you know, set up a Twitter account and I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know, I guess I expected a lot of competition among writers. I didn't know that there was going to be so much camaraderie. But I mean, the thriller world was just so warm and so welcoming. And I know that all genres of writers are so warm and welcoming, but I feel like in domestic suspense, whatever you call us, I feel like it is a really tight-knit group. And I think that what for me makes it so important is just, you know, I have some wonderful real world friends and really close to my family. But when you get, you know, that 10-page editorial letter or the really, really nasty review, and, you know, they get it, but there's nothing like going to a thriller writer, you know, and saying, oh my gosh, you know, look what just happened, and just getting the support from somebody who's been there and totally understands.
And one other thing that I hadn't, well, I didn't know because I wasn't writing. It's not just the authors; it's all of the reviewers, and Bookstagram is huge.
Oh my God, the Bookstagrammers!
And these are people who are taking time. I mean, for us, it's our day job, it's our career. That's one thing. But for these people, they read, they review, they post, they make these beautiful posts and photographs and you know, with flowers and knickknacks or whatever. And they take their time to do all these things. And I find, I'm in awe. And they're so creative too. And this is for their love of the love of books. And I'm continually amazed at what they do. It's incredible. I'm so grateful that they're out there and doing this. It truly is spectacular. It really is.
Yeah, the Bookstagrammers, I also have to say, and the readers and the bloggers, the librarians, the booksellers, like they made us bestsellers.
Yes.
Right? Like you made us bestsellers that, you know, you've changed our lives simply for the love of books. That's it. That's all. Like, you don't get what we get out of it in terms of career wise, like for especially the you know, bloggers and Bookstagrammers. So
absolutely, yeah.
You're getting a lot of love on Facebook or live comments. You've got a lot of passionate readers who are not only loving to see the support, and like people are commenting on the fact that what other industry do we know that there's more support than competition?
Right.
Oh yeah,
definitely doesn't happen in a lot of them.
No.
There was a question that came up, which was one I actually had written down as well. So I'm going to pivot. We've lived through an insane few months. 2020, I believe we were talking about before we finally got live, has just been a disaster for people all around the world. People's lives have been changed forever. As suspense thriller writers, how, you tend to write in present day. What will 2020 look like for you? Is it a year that's going to happen in your books? Is it, what's happening?
Next year's book, I'm not writing it in because I handed it in January. So there was, and I'm just not going there. I don't think I've digested it enough to be able to put it on the page. The one after, there will be a soupçon of 2020. And I think it'll fit nicely into the plot, but it will have already happened. I mean, A, because it has, but also B, because the book won't be out until 2022. So hopefully we'll have a bit more distance, and I can use a little sprinkling of it. But I'm not going to have a pandemic book in the sense that domestic suspense surrounded by or framed by the pandemic.
How does it end, Hannah?
Not well for some characters.
Yeah. I am currently writing a book, and I haven't set it in any specific year. In my head, it's before. That's it. It's just before. I feel like were I to write it into this suspense, it would take over. It would take over everything. My characters couldn't do anything. So
you also trying to get Zoom calls to work.
Yeah, right. And all the frustration and that, everything that comes with that. But no, and I think I also want to give a shout out. Daniel Keller is a Canadian author whose book, The Last High, is currently on the bestseller list. And he just in terms of the pandemic, sorry to go off topic, but he wrote an excellent article in the Toronto Star. It was very uplifting, I found. He is also an ER doctor and an author. How he does that, I don't know. That boggles my mind. But it was uplifting. And if anyone's just, you're just feeling really kind of despondent, then I would recommend reading the article, because he talks about just what it's really like on the front lines. And of course, it's not easy at all, but how the Renaissance came after the Spanish flu, the Black Plague, and how after the Spanish flu came the Roaring 20s. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to add that, because I thought it helped me so much.
Yeah. That's a good thought. Good things to come, hopefully.
Yeah.
I turned in my next book. I guess it was like January or February. So it was before all of this happened. So it doesn't have any pandemic type stuff. I need to be starting my next book, and I'm having trouble. I'm just having trouble like getting into the groove, and of course with like family home, and it's not my typical. Right. I know none of this is typical for any of us, but I'm just, I'll figure it out. But I can't actually imagine writing about this time. But of course, I don't know how long it's going to last. So it might not be practical to not include it in some aspect. I'm not really sure yet. But I do know that when I'm reading things and, like someone holds hands, or, like they go to visit grandma and grandpa, or, things that like we might not do now at all, or they're, going to a baseball game, and it stops me in my tracks. So it'll be interesting to see just how long it takes to get back to a sense of normalcy.
Mm-hmm. Veronica, I know we have kind of started at a different time. Are we okay to keep going? Okay, still got people on. One of my favorite questions to ask authors is, what are you reading right now? And what should we be reading? What is a recommendation for people?
I just finished Megan Miranda's The Girl of Widow Hills, and it's so good. I want to say it comes out like
this week or next week.
It's very soon. Yeah, and it's absolutely incredible. So I would highly recommend that one.
I just read The Swap by Robin Harding. I started it, I think it was Saturday evening, I said, oh, I'll just read a couple of chapters and then we'll watch a movie together with my husband and our boys. Yeah, that didn't happen. The movie did not happen. And this doesn't happen often, that I read a book just in one entire sitting, just time, you know. But I did. I took my Kindle and I went to bed, and I didn't put it down until I was done. And it's out on June 23rd.
Okay.
It was,
Tomorrow. Yeah, also tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, tomorrow, yeah. It's next week. Duh, it's tomorrow, yeah. It's really good, really, really good.
Yeah, I also loved The Swap. I'm going to start Megan Miranda's book soon. So I'm reading The Other Misses, which is this incredible book by someone named Mary Kubica. I don't know if you've heard of her. Book, I love Mary's books. Mary's books are just, especially now, it's the best escape. Like, I can just totally dive in and nothing else is happening around me. So I love that. I just finished They All Fall Down by Rachel Housel Hall, which I really recommend because it's like wild, crazy bananas. It's creepy. It takes place on a resort. It's very Agatha Christie. And then I'm going to start Catch Me If You Can.
Catherine McKenzie?
Yeah, is that the name? Catch Me If You Can? I don't know if it's wrong. Yeah, that's going to come up too.
That one's phenomenal. I got to look at that one and I loved it.
Yeah, the blurb looks so good.
So if anyone's looking for lots of recommendations, Hank, Philippi, Ryan and I have First Chapter Fun. I created this back in March and read for both Sam. Sam was my first read, and for Mary as well. So every Tuesday and every Thursday on Facebook, First Chapter Fun, and on Instagram, First Chapter Fun, we read the first chapter of a different book, not ours, other authors, live. And it's it's funny because we fluff the lines and it gets very silly sometimes, which is kind of fun. But B, it's just another way for us to help promote other authors and help connect readers to new to them authors and discover new books, because they're not all new. Some of them have already either released a few months ago or the year before or a couple of years before. But if anyone's watching, I'll be reading tomorrow. So yeah, there's a little plug for that, I thought, because it's really good fun to read for people.
It's amazing. What time is that doing?
11:30 a.m. Eastern time. But we save all of the videos. They're always saved in the archive on Facebook and Instagram. So I think tomorrow is episode 66.
Wow. Oh my gosh, you're amazing.
And you just started it after a Facebook chat.
Yes. We were freaking out collectively about COVID, and we've got books coming out, and what's that going to look like? Our events had started to be cancelled, and I semi-jokingly said, "Well, I don't know. What if I read the first chapter of your book live?"
Yeah, we were all like, "Yeah, oh, please," in that voice.
I thought, right? Yes, and then within 2 days, I had 40 people lined up. So and then Hank said, what are you doing? Are you going to stop? Well, I can't read every day because my publishers expect me to write books. Silly them. And she said, well, what if you had a partner in crime? So now we share, and we have readings. Today I've been telling people are contacting us saying, can you read for me? And I say, sure, but we're booking into late February, early March.
That's amazing.
Wow, Hannah.
Amazing.
So if you've got a book coming out next year, tell me now.
Oh my gosh.
All kinds of books too, not just thrillers, I should say. We have all kinds.
Yeah, which is also really wonderful too.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going back through some of the comments here because there was one that caught my eye, and I'm going to probably just... I know, Sam, I heard you talk about this at the Kitchener Public Library in the fall on your book tour, but Rianne asks, where did you get the idea for your novel, for your latest novel?
Awesome.
I think you mentioned it in the book, in the back, but what was the spark for each of your novels?
Mine was the TTC, which Mary is the Toronto Transit Commission. It's our local public transit.
Wonderful, right? It's a joyous experience every time.
Yeah, it's wonderful. The platforms are really narrow. We have no barriers. And again, my dark mind, I was standing on the subway platform. I don't remember which one. And I saw a woman holding her baby, and she looked frazzled and exhausted. And I remembered, you know, with my own 2 kids, especially my son, because the first is always the worst. And so always the hardest because you don't know what you're doing. And so I saw her, and she was standing quite close to the edge. And I thought, what if? And I scribbled the idea on a gum pack. And she was, you know, we got on the train, and she was happy with her baby. And I projected all my own feelings onto her and all my own dark thoughts onto her. But it was that day on the subway platform that did it for me.
That's so good. With this book, The Other Myths, is literally like the twist is one of the twists is the first thing that came to me. And so I can never really talk about the inspiration for this book. It's a hard one. But so it was one of the few books that I did kind of have that ending in mind, or part of the ending. So it was a different experience, like creating the whole story and all the characters to kind of get to this twist.
And it's a good twist.
Love that book. Love
I need to go and read it now.
Not yet.
In the middle.
You can't leave yet, Sam. We're not quite done.
For me, it was a snippet I heard on the radio. I was driving somewhere with one of the kids, and I had CBC on, and a woman was talking about, or was being interviewed because she'd found a wedding ring at a playground, and she was trying to find the rightful owner through social media. And a normal person would go, "Ah, that's so nice." And I went, "Oh, that's so nice. What if she found that the owner of the ring, has a much better life than she does, and she gets jealous and she starts stalking?" That's where Sister Dear came from. So there is a ring in this. That's not the story, but there is a ring in the book, and that's where it came from. It was just this random thing on social media. Weird.
Did you ever follow up with the story and see if it ended happily, or
no?
That's a good question.
I should, yeah. I should try and find it. But it was one of those ideas that kept. I was writing the book before at the time, so Her Secret Son. I was working on that one, but it kept going through my mind, this what if, and it just stuck. And that's when I know that it's the one I need to write. It's when it won't. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea. But it's the what if that keeps
coming.
Yeah, it won't leave me alone.
Now, Hannah, you actually already answered this question during one of the workshops you led earlier this month, so I'm going to make you answer it again. Because Carolyn, who actually asked the question originally, asked it again, because it's a good question. And it's, what book have you read, and it doesn't have to be recently, it can be from childhood, but that sparked that feeling in you and that made you say, I wish I had written this? And it could be the book that made you want to be a writer, or it can just be, what's this book that just made you go, damn, I wish I had written that?
Well, there are a couple. Gone Girl was one of them when I read it, and I thought, oh, I wish I'd written that. And not a gazillion copies, not because of that. I mean, sure, yeah, that's lovely too, but it was the way it was put together. It was how it was constructed. It was that moment in the book, no spoilers, but that moment in the book where your allegiances shift, where you go, what? No, hey, come on now. That was just so, that was incredible. So that's definitely one. And I know this is not going to be a popular answer right now, but I'm going to say it anyway. The Harry Potter series. Because honestly, the whole controversy notwithstanding, never mind, let's put that aside for now. The writing, the characters, the imagination from J.K. Rowling is just, I just can't get my head around all of the things, because it's one thing, a thriller and whatnot is one thing, but the whole world building and the wizarding world and the rules and everything, that's just something else. That's just, it's crazy. So there are a number of them. And recently I read He Started It by Samantha Downing.
So good.
Last year, I blurbed for it. And I was sitting in the living room and Rob, my husband, was watching TV. And I was reading it on my Kindle, and I looked up and I went, "Oh my God, what? No!" And then he said, "What's going on? What's going on?" So shh, I'm reading. So my lovely wife, and he started it. I would put in there. She is so brave in her choices. And I love her stuff. She's amazing. So yeah, I fangirl. Yeah.
The ending of He Started It. That was, I'm not going to give anything away, but I don't think I have ever been as like shocked by an ending ever. I think I screamed. I know. She's a author. I think to answer this question, I think for me, the one book that I always go back to, like I wish I would have written myself, is Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson. You've probably all read it. It's just so, the construction of it and the idea, and it's so smart. I mean, I don't think I couldn't have written it. I don't have that level of intelligence, I think, to put that book together.
I disagree.
Thank you. But oh my goodness, I was just completely blown away the first time I read it. And it's one of those books that I keep going back to. And I think that there's a lot to learn from it.
So I think, like Hannah, a book I wish I'd written, Gone Girl. But I feel more of a joy reading it, that somebody could put together something so brilliantly that I would love to aspire to that. Honestly, like I just think the construction of it is so brilliant. But the two books that made me want to be a writer are Bridge to Terabithia by Catherine Patterson. To this day, still tears me apart. And Good in Bed by Jennifer Weiner. Okay. I closed the last page of that book and I was like, okay, I'm doing it. I was 29 years old. Like I said, I've been writing since I was 10, but I'd never had the courage to write a full-length novel. And I said, I'm doing it. I'm writing a full-length novel, and I never looked back. So I thank Jennifer Weiner, and I'm a huge, huge fan of hers. So definitely that.
Yeah. This question almost goes with that one, but it's one that just came in, and it's an interesting one. In that, so you all have published. Sam, you are, Dave, you're working on your second novel, so this is especially relevant after huge success. All three of you have been very successful. Do you find there's more pressure now to write the books? Are you thinking about audience and marketing and?
Yeah. Yes.
How does that affect writing the stories?
Yeah, I think it's, you're always trying to do better than you've done, in the past. But I also think there's the added pressure that the thriller suspense genre has exploded in recent years. And I think we're all probably big readers of the genre too. And so every time I start a new book, I'm thinking, what can I do that hasn't been done before? And so it's that I haven't done before, or, that some other author hasn't done before. And there's definitely the pressure to just keep raising the bar. And I don't know, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like each book kind of creates its own challenges. Some books are a little bit easier to write, or they just cooperate a little bit more. Some books are just, they're difficult, from page one. And so it's one of those interesting jobs that, I don't necessarily I always try and outdo myself, but I can't necessarily apply skills that I've learned from a previous book to a new book, because sometimes I don't know, what challenges I'm going to face with that project. But I am always trying to do better. And it gets a little bit harder or more daunting, I should say, with each book.
I think Mary nailed my every emotion, basically. And I think because I'm working on my second, during a pandemic, I don't know what the experience would have been like, had I had my space and time, and it would have been maybe a really different experience. It feels almost freeing right now because I actually don't have a set publication date, because things are so uncertain right now that nobody wants to just set a date. So I do have a little bit of freedom with time. I'm on a deadline, but I have a freedom of time. I think more so than I would have without the pandemic. But I'm kind of panicky all the time right now, so I'm not sure if I'm panicky because of the pandemic and just with the kids and keeping them busy and secure and safe, or if I'm panicky because I'm writing my second book. But also, there is great joy and therapy and catharsis in writing. And in writing this second book, feeling like I have a better handle on the thriller genre. The first time I had to rewrite it so many times because I was learning as I went, and I'm still learning as I go. But I feel like I understand the genre better. But then, like Mary said, because we read so many thrillers and so many wonderful thrillers come out, it's trying to set your own writing apart from that. That it is daunting, wonderful and daunting, and all of that.
I think my my corporate experience before helped a lot because I'm very used to shifting my goalposts and setting myself new goals all the time. And yeah, sure, I mean, deadlines and that's fine. But at first it was, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to get an agent. I'm going to get a book deal. I'm going to get a print book deal because my first one wasn't. I want to be on the bestseller list. I want this, I want this, I want this. And to always expand that and do better and do more. And it's not, of course, yeah, it is for people to love what I write and love what I do. Absolutely. But it's also to see whether I can I write another one? Can I, will it be better received or hopefully, not always, but it's almost like a solo game of chicken in a way. Dare I go darker? Dare I do this? Can I do this? So I'm very, very driven and self-motivated, always have been, I think, which goes a long way because it is such a solitary profession a lot of the time, except for events like these, of course. But there's definitely pressure. I mean, we also know that it's not necessarily a stable career choice, because if your books don't do well, then there's no guarantee that you'll get another book deal for however long. And if you do get another one, will you still be relevant? So that's always, it is in the back of my mind, but it isn't also when I write, because if I keep it, if it's somewhere buried at the back, that's fine. But if it's at the front of my mind, I won't be able to write, because I also know I can't write to please everyone, nor should I try, because not everyone's going to like what I write. Some people will love it, some people will hate it, and others will be in between. So try to put those fears away and think about them for a minute and go, oh, okay. And then, all right, enough, get on with it. You have a job to do. I'm in seat, fingers on keyboard, get on with it.
Yes, that self-doubt and that negative talk, it can be paralyzing sometimes. Yeah. You have to learn to turn it off.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to breathe through it, roll up your sleeves and say, okay, let it go.
And then you get to public, you go, oh no, everyone's going to hate it.
I think, do we have time for one more question, Veronica? One last one. This is a question kind of, again, related, but all of you have written different genres before you landed where you are, which clearly you are well loved in suspense. But is there a part of you that wants to go back to rom-com, women's literature? Do you see yourself branching out, or are you true love with thrillers?
I have one manuscript that I was working on when The Neighbours sold, and as it was a 2-book deal, I pitched that one, but I wasn't really very happy with it because it wasn't very dark, but it wasn't a rom-com. It was kind of in between, and I wasn't sure. And they said, we like the idea, but it doesn't fit with what you're writing. And I was quite happy about that. Will I ever dust that one off and do something with it? Maybe. I also have a what is currently a middle grade book, but I think it should be YA. I think it'd be much better if it were. I might do something with, but to be honest, I'm on a book a year schedule, and that's pretty tight as it is. So if I one day have time, maybe, but right now I don't feel a burning desire to go back to rom-com. I'm too happy writing the dark stuff.
Yeah.
And just getting darker.
Yeah.
I used to be a high school history teacher before I started writing full time. So every now and then I do toy rounds with the idea of writing historical fiction. You have to have some sort of mystery thriller elements to it. But I mean, historical fiction, I read a lot of historical fiction, and I'm blown away by these authors, the way they can just completely transport you in time and place. And they know, their research, they know it so well. And so that intimidates me. I don't know that I could do that. And I definitely couldn't do it. Like Hannah, I'm on a book a year schedule. So I definitely couldn't do it in that time frame. I think I would need maybe a year to do the research and a year to write the book. But one movie.
So I actually, this is my 5th book written. 1 self-published, 4 that are in a drawer. I will never dust those off. I believe there are no wasted words. So I believe, all of those books led me to Woman on the Edge and led me to where I needed to be. I love nothing more than cutting my work. I love deleting and cutting, tearing it apart. I'm a total masochist. But I loved writing rom-coms, and my rom-coms were really edgy and irreverent. They weren't really sweet. So there was a darkness to them as well. And I still love reading rom-com. I don't know if I'd go back to writing comedy. I think what I would like to try is like a darkly comic thriller, perhaps. Cara Rauda in The Favorite Daughter. It was, and also the They All Fall Down, Rachel Housel Hall. It's got some really dark humor in it. So I could see myself maybe veering into that, but I think before that, I would just keep going darker and darker in the thriller sense.
Thank you. I think we have a lot to look forward to read in the future from all of you. I should remind everyone that all 3 of these incredible women are active on their social media. And you can find them very easily. I think it's basically their names on Twitter and Instagram. And Hannah, I know you've got a couple events coming up. I think all of you actually have events coming up. So we should make sure to check them out if you want to hear more from them. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you for hanging in with us. And as a fangirl myself, it was a pleasure to get to sit down and talk with all 3 of you on books that I deeply love. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kayleigh.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for staying, and thank you for putting this together for us.
Yeah, and sticking around until we
stick around.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you for the wonderful questions, Kayleigh.
Thank you. Veronica, I don't know if you have anything to end it with.
Oh, I actually do.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Hannah, for saving the night. I don't know what I would have done without you. I just wanted to let people know that we have a few other author events coming up in the near future. We have the 2nd Killer Crime Club happening on Saturday, August the 8th at 2 p.m. This is our Juicy Beach Reads edition. And the authors are going to be Karen Hamilton and Adele Parks. And Kayleigh will be moderating that discussion. I also wanted to let everybody know that we are going to be partnering with Eden Mills Festival for an author event with Emma Donahue. She's going to be talking about her newest book, The Pull of the Stars. This event is going to be happening on Tuesday, August the 25th at 8 p.m. But prior to that event, we're going to be hosting 2 book talks, one with Kayleigh on Tuesday, August the 18th at 7 p.m., and then one with our Preston Book Club on Friday, August the 21st. I know I just threw a lot of dates at you and times, so just go to our website or our Facebook page. All of the event information is there, dates and times. They are on Zoom. I will have a backup plan so that this won't happen again. But I just wanted to thank the authors for being patient, Kayleigh for leading such a wonderful discussion, and to everybody out there for sticking with us. And to Gabrielle and Jen, who you guys don't see, but they've been working in the background trying to redirect people back to Facebook. We hope that you have a wonderful night and a fabulous week, and stay cool. It's pretty toasty out there right now. And thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Good night.
stay where you are,
Oh.
panelists, and I'll end the broadcast.